So the tide's just going out here. Made my way across the water, past the geese. They were nice. And I think we could have a half decent day today, peace-wise. So I did a bunch of, I said yesterday I was at my pentagrams, I said something or someone is attacking me. They got into my home and they got into my mom. She was enraged last night. So she was in a psychotic rage. They don't admit it's a rage. It's just, I don't want to go into it. It's just such a boondoggle. I mean, she's so fucking sick. It's just, but people are. I mean, lots of working people that have so much sublimated rage. They can't even put a name to it. And it changes things. It just changed our entire society. Hitler is Walt Disney, you know. Churchill was a top-ranking member of the Nazi Party. Hitler's wife was actually Walt Disney's sister, you know. It's all family, you know. The killing is real, they say, but the rest is just a show. Control the personality at the top. That's a new kind of crime I don't think human beings are really even used to. It's a completely different crime, completely different thing. I think a lot of people are already so strongly conditioned to accept it, which could seem to serve as some kind of confirmation of its existence, but that is obviously very circular logic. But if it's true, then that would also be the case. In other words, it could be true, and you could find all kinds of circular logic. But yeah, my mom attacked me last night. It's not pleasant, but I had spent the day doing my spell, and the spell was keep the peace in my home, keep the peace in my home. And so when I left her today, she was in a good mood again. You know, the spell had broken. I just worked on it slowly. And it's not fair to me at all. She made some very unpalatable comments to me. Very, very bad comments. I won't even repeat them. The things my mother says to me is just out of this world. I think, God, she can't be in her right mind. But I think, even though she's drinking, she's basically telling the truth on some level. Yeah, she's out of her mind. She's psychotic. And you can't do anything about that. You can't do anything about the psychosis of people. I think every day shit happens around the world. And I don't want to seem fatalistic, but there's nothing you can do for psychotic people. Like, everything in society is like, well, do this and do this and do this. But at the end of the day, like, what are you really doing? Nothing. You can get mad, you can this. You know, I just stopped shopping certain places and just stopped shopping there. So, you know, months, years, or forever. Just you meet psychotic people and it's just, it sucks. You can't really think the same way about an organization if you meet someone psychotic in it. It's like it's never going to be the same again. And I can go into any organization, I can find, you know, the most obvious psychopaths. I wouldn't claim to be able to, you know, spot like, deeply psychopathic people, but obvious psychopaths, which is bad enough. But lots of other psychopaths are not so obvious. And again, I want to humanize psychopathy because, you know, I use that term a lot. And the fact is that humans have to be psychopaths to survive the communist society that we live in, more or less. So you're basically seeing a world that has become one. It is all the same person. Everyone's pretty much the same. They're the psychopath, the psychotic, and they're doing everything they need to do. And I've met people all my life, and they're so interesting in their spirit and what they've survived, and so many attractive things about them. But they're the psychotic. The psychotic comes out, and it's like they prevent them. They don't get to know me. They become violent with me. They don't get to know anybody, really. And they're extremely predatory. It's unfortunate. There's still people attacking me, but it's okay. I'm safe here today. The main attack came through my home. So I say, like, people's anger has a kind of spirit to it. I'm not so much into demonology, but it's no coincidence that I was facing an attack yesterday at my pentagrams. And my mom had given me some bad information about things. You can't rely upon her in any way. But I got her into a better mood today. Mostly it was just she wants you to capitulate. She knows there's a fight to be had, and you just go, just pretend like it's nothing, and you just go on with your life. Like, the fact of the matter is, her assault of me last night is nothing compared to what I'm used to. I barely slept. Not that she cares. Yeah, you just don't sleep. It's impossible to get to sleep when you're living with a psychotic. You never know what they're capable of, and you think, you know, if you don't know what a psychotic is capable of, you probably never lived around a psychotic, I guess. I get to know things like that. People, stuff, God, you can just spend your whole life thinking about them. They're just so. If you're wondering, you don't have to tell me, for instance, that people are crazy. And maybe I don't have to tell you. I'd rather start at that point of the conversation. People, like the whole world, human beings, there is good evidence to suggest that we are under a good deal of not so alien manipulation. Actually, it's the world of aliases. So Hitler, Churchill, Disney, all these characters around us, none of them are anyone you think they are. The people of history are the actors of history. The heroes, the medals, the queens, the kings, they're all fiction. And that's what keeps the true control around the world. The rest is just bureaucrats like you and me doing all their work for them. You know, I think bit by bit we can release human beings from that bondage. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this. Like, I mean, I'm either crazy, I'm either just such an incredible victim that there's absolutely nothing to be done, and I may serve as a cautionary tale in that way, or there is room in us, in a modest way, to shake each other out of this mental slavery more than anything. And it's just at a level of magic that it's not something that just disappears all by itself. You know, if there's an argument in a bar, you're involved in an argument, and maybe you're at home, and maybe words get said, and maybe perceptions get altered, and maybe bad information is shared, or maybe people become under various illusions, and it hurts you and it hurts other people. And that's just one kitchen at night. Okay? And you can maybe handle that. But the level of deception about humanity, over humanity, in our minds, and in the beliefs of hundreds of millions, billions people all over the world. Um, you know, wars affect people. Um, I don't want to go into my stories about how I've seen the effects of war on human beings. It's not that hard to see it. I mean, you can basically just go up to people and ask people, and you will see, because whatever they say will be the answer to your question. It's not a question of if, it's how. And if you get to sit here as I do on the side of an ocean, and I've got all my little things I could bitch about. My mom is a pathological liar, and I think there's some kind of, she's very vulnerable to angry spirits, and she definitely got moved by a lot of anger yesterday. So there's something in someone attacking my home. So yesterday I did a lot of protection for her, and a lot of anger came out of her, and I'm guessing, actually, strange little way, it's a sign that the protection is working. So, and then I just waited and waited and waited. I trusted the work that I did. I thought about the pranograms today, and just let them do their work, and within minutes my mom's mood just completely changed, and we just went on with our day like nothing happened. And it could have been the kind of thing where I'd be moving out today. I mean, we could have just gone to war. As soon as I say, fuck you, don't talk to me that way, and I've had enough of this, like, it would have been the end of it. I can't afford to get angry. So what kind of relationship is it, do you think, when you're dealing with someone and you can't afford to get angry? That's your job. That's the only way you can survive. You're not allowed to be angry. So my relationships with women, I'm not allowed to be angry. Their friends, their family, they can do whatever they want. I'm not allowed to be angry. They can use weapons, they can use knives, words, things like that. There's nothing I can do ever. That's how I live. I may not seem like the strongest guy, but I don't walk around with weapons. I'm not a guy that can just handle any situation to your or anyone's satisfaction. But I will deal with things slowly and alertly. And it's not easy because I can't afford to get angry. There's too much work to do. Given what I can see and what I can feel, if I had a black belt in some martial art, if I was like a Marine, I mean, I'd be snapping necks every other day, But the average Marine is not going to see and feel what I do. And for various reasons. Not all bad, by the way. I mean, people, different lives. We get to not have to deal with the shit that other people deal with. But I would bet that everyone in the world has to deal with people one way or the other. That's your life, your happiness, your future, your peace, whatever war you fight, whatever job you do, you're going to have to deal with people. Your happiness, and this is not a curse, by the way, I think, but our happiness is fundamentally connected to other people. It's the one thing I've never really said out loud. Yeah, there's the rub. Happiness, whatever happens in the world, there may be just one person to whom your happiness is connected. And depending on how the subject is treated, it doesn't have to seem maudlin, it doesn't have to seem like a curse, but it may seem like a lot of our pain and a lot of our hurts are wrapped around this. If I didn't have, for me anyway, if I just didn't have a mom and dad, brothers and sisters, no one ever lied to me, they just raised me in some communist ghetto, and they said, look, just go off and fucking masturbate in the forest, and no one's going to hurt you, I'd be like, okay. Being myself, and I'll just do this. But the fact that I had to have a family, a mother, a father, the fact that I cared about people, right? If you're in a relationship with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, the hardest part about breaking up is the fact that you cared about them, right? Cared about them. That sounds excruciating to me. So I've never had a girlfriend or a boyfriend, in case you're wondering. I've never had a girlfriend, and but my whole life I've had to break up with my family, with everything and everyone I first loved has been breaking up with me my entire life, you know, and it happened at different levels. But by the time my older brother probably had turned 12 years old, and my sister had been 8 or 9, and moving forward, so that would be 1985, 1986. 1986, Expo 86 was probably the last year where there, you know, if things had taken a different turn, I wouldn't have had to go through this the rest of my life. But about 1986. Not that I remember a particular thing, but I know that we went to the expo and my dad and me and my brother were there walking around, and it seemed okay. But my dad was never. The thing that it's hard for me is that my parents, they, and that's what I do all day, by the way, in case you're wondering. And I do honestly believe this could be of interest to other people, as self-indulgent as it is. So I am thinking of that, but it doesn't mean that I'm good at it. Because I don't know if I can serve more than one master. I have to find peace in this world. So peace is my master. You're not my master, but if peace is my master, some kind of peace is your master, maybe they can work it out. We can have a constructive conversation. That'd be a good name for this video. Peace is the master. It sounds like such a the kind of thing that some white hippie who lives with his mother would write. It's so funny. I'm sorry. I do have a sense of humor about myself. It's just like it's so fuck. That's like, but it is a nice thing. I think it's true, but it depends what you think in your own mind. um, but I'm starting to understand, especially spending time with my mom, is that my mom and dad didn't talk to children. Like they don't really relate to children at all. They like true to their psychoticism and that of their parents. All kinds of neat things that they could do that they did provide, and you got to think that your gold standard is basically what you're used to. So you don't grow up and think everything my parents did was awful, bleh, you know. But there are moments certainly, and sometimes the beginning of the rest of your life where you're like something is terribly wrong, blah, like absolutely, and nothing in your heart is telling you that it's going to get any better. And you go this way, you go that, and it's not nice, but you may come back to it the rest of your life, that thing that was just terribly wrong. And I've seen people dying, and if this scares us, maybe it should, who basically their whole life they were just slowly dying inside after their father beat them, right? Or after their cousin raped them. Their whole life slowly dying. And they fought that. They fought that their whole life, but they couldn't do much else. And this is my fear being around such people. One of them is I don't want a girlfriend because I don't want my children to be lost to this fight. Because obviously it is a big deal to me. And no matter what was going on, no matter what relationship I was in, we would have to keep up this fight, this grief, and yes, this walk of peace. This world forces us to fight. I don't fight people. I work really hard to keep my temper in all situations. Even if I'm at my maddest, it's the slob in front of me has probably been put in this situation. Remember that. Even when you're maddest at someone, passing the fact that not accepting the fact that if they're really like physically doing something, to endanger you and others, but there are probably some poor slob who's been put in this situation by other worse people than they. But they're still fucking guilty of disturbing you, absolutely. And you stay your hand. You're like, fuck, you're the poor slob that had to. Maybe you're talking to a scapegoat. Maybe you're talking to someone who people use, and they've gotten them to be the person they put in front of them to protect them. And they think they're there for a reason, when in fact they've been sent by a tyrannical government, if you will. And you're like, okay, the American shows up in Poland or in Leningrad or whatever, and it's like, and he starts shooting people, and it's like, okay, I know you don't fucking mean it, You know, and he shoots your family. It's like, I know you didn't believe, you believe what you were told, okay. And then at what point do you just pop them? But you've solved nothing by killing them. Even then, you've solved nothing by killing the American. You've solved nothing by killing the invading German soldier. Sorry, you've solved nothing. Have you? It's excruciating, isn't it? We're going into the world of excruciating pain right now. It's how do you solve this? And you're looking at this person, you're looking at this person. Now look at the people around you. Look at your mommy and daddy. Are there problems in your heart that need to be solved? Are there problems in the heart of your family that need to be solved? Well, speaking for myself, problems that'll never be solved. Not in this life. And all I have is the home that I walked here from today. And I did ritual all day yesterday to protect myself in my home. I knew something or someone was attacking me. Be it residual anger or whatever. I just think I don't know enough about these things. I just know something's attacking me. And my mother attacked me. And it starts with one thing. She was going off about the landlord. She just started it on me. She can't control herself. She has her half a glass of wine. Now it's going to take me days or weeks to deal with her assaulting me. Yesterday, we start from zero again. Like I said, I've made a few videos. I said, oh, things have been pretty good. Right? I want to give my mother credit. She's been good. And then yesterday, it was all destroyed. But I'm a little better off than I usually am. I'm noticing that it just breaks my heart. You know, you start from scratch again, the entire relationship. You just say, okay, let's pretend we just met each other, and we'll have our home. You know, and you see that my mom lived with my dad, obviously. Like, you could never have a home just because of her. She was never the heart of my home. She was a destroyer. She's a destructive being. She's very easily influenced by spirits of anger. She's been very well conditioned by the world. Just looking at who my mom is friends with and who she isn't, it's like, put it this way, I never need to know her friends. I never need to know my mother's. My mother's friends are always deadbeats. Like, it's a sure way that somebody, my dad or my mom, anyone they're close to, you know they're dead. They're like deadbeat alert systems. Just take my mom and dad around, whoever they like, those are deadbeats. Guaranteed. Every time. Every fucking time. And so, you know, my mom's friends with everyone in the building. They had cocktails in Christmas. They didn't invite me. Right. You might say, well, did you want to go? It's like, no, but they didn't invite me. I'm glad they didn't invite me, but still, it was just interesting. I think in this instance, I'll give them a fair play. They're all older people, so they wouldn't invite someone in the 40s, but they don't like me. Just heard something. Oh, he's got his dog out there. God, I'm so thirsty. I forgot to drink. I'm stoned as well. Mightily. So we're just gonna hold out today and curry some favor with peace. I did the right thing, so there's no violence in my home. I took it out. I took it with me today. I absorbed a lot of it. So took a walk in the water, past the geese, did some shivering in the course of the night, some laughing. You know, you just let off the stress. It's incredible. I mean, it only needs to be said, not because I really want to hate on my mom. It's just that, you know, you're living with a sick human being. And you could spend your life can alter in dealing with such people. It altered my life when I was young and I didn't know how sick my family was. I got really hurt. And it changed my life. Like, these people, it's agonizing. You're living around people your whole life who can't reason properly, and whose agendas, however seemingly loving on the surface, go to you might want to just the best way to say it is just scrambled programming. Crossed wires, scrambled programming, not thinking correctly. And if you could just press pause and you had enough time to go in another dimension and show them, you don't have to do things this way, and you take some time, we can both have a voice in this, but can we just do this so that, if we look at the stats on each of our biometrics, none of my red lines go down. That's my critical systems, right? And then they would go, if they were true to form, no, I don't give a fuck about your critical systems. This is how we're going to solve this situation. And so psychopaths are always solving situations in ways that hurt your critical systems. The accusation or the insinuation being that if they weren't permitted to do this by you, whatever it is you've done to object or to retard this violence, you would be effectively harming them. And then you would be forced to sustain even more escalated violence or prejudice. And I've seen it thousands and thousands of times, right? And that's just from my mother. I've written thousands of poems, but I've lived with that, and you can't tell anybody, and nobody cares, and therapists don't care, and psychologists don't care. Nobody gives a fuck. And it's literally scrambled programming in the human mind. That's all it is. But it creates most of the stress on earth. And everyone, no matter whether you like it or not, is also dealing with it. Just like me and you and everyone else. And they've got probably their own thoughts on the matter. And it certainly isn't them, right? It's not you, it's not me, it's nobody. Nobody has the problem, but yet everybody has the problem, right? So what do you do in that situation? For instance, a lot of people, they can speak probably quite eloquently about the ethics of, people not being raped, physically assaulted, your property stolen, honoring contracts, the usual stuff about law, which is good, but you get to that point, and actually all these other laws have usually been trespassed upon. Right? By the time someone breaks in your house, there are other laws that have been trespassed upon. And him and you and your community and all that is sacred to you. I don't think we treat the problems of the world seriously enough because they have psychic components to them. So I'm talking about ways that people interfere with our physical energy. The way they solve problems. Let's just assume that we all inherit all the problems of the world. But these problems are being solved by people who, you have to see it in different ways, but have been trained to solve them in very costly ways, which creates psychic debt, trauma. And then that debt, like any debt, has to be paid for. Right? Because now you're taxing people's ability to survive, even though it started off psychically. Right? If someone puts you out of temper every day, if you take your child and you hit them over the head with a hammer every day, what do you think they're going to need to do to survive by the time they're 20 years old, compared to someone who isn't hit on the head with a hammer, but is hugged and loved, and they get a daddy and mommy to get to know them? What do you think their sense of survival is? So at this point, the first 20-year-old, his very survival, one way or the other, is probably going to be touched in his mind or in reality in ways where he is going to have to do very physical things to other people. Now you take all the range in between and hundreds and thousands of millions of people all over the world, all getting tapped with a hammer in their mind. Every generation, tap, like the raven tapping. And he's like, no, I'm not going to let you live a life in total peace until you deal with these laws. You're going to have to deal with the laws. And you're like, what laws? Nobody said anything about any laws. I thought society had laws. No, the psychic laws. You ever had friends, you say you've got the bro code, you've got the unspoken rules, like your sister, your brother, your friend, like they don't betray you, they don't sleep with your boyfriend, this type of thing. Those aren't laws, but they are, aren't they? They're psychic laws. It says that if you say that you're my friend, and we form some kind of mutual friendship, some trust of any kind, right, then you shouldn't threaten my physical or my psychic survival at that point. Now, the average person walking down the street, you don't have to trust them, but you can often trust them more than you can trust your friend. And the breaking of which trust is usually just scratched up to, well, I guess I shouldn't have trusted them. That's all you really can do. It's like, oh, guess I shouldn't have trusted you. Okay, going on to the next one. There's my trust. Bam, bam, bam. Oh, guess I shouldn't have trusted you. And you go, bam, bam, bam. Oh, guess I shouldn't have trusted you either. And by the way, that character, that's me, starring in a movie about me. Every single person that I meet my entire life. Okay, well, it doesn't matter who it is. And you may not believe me. I'm talking about every fucking human being. Right? I'm just me. What is it about me? Right? Do I have a sign on my back? Fuck me. I give people so much room. I'm incredibly patient. I'm an incredibly compassionate human being. I've written books of poetry. I've tried to study all kinds of subjects around rooms full of people. I've been in a relationship or friendship with a woman where I would write poetry a lot, and if I was writing poetry with her, she would tell me to stop and pay more attention to her. Like if she ever caught me writing in front of her. I granted, I could see like someone deciding to occupy themselves outside of the normal meter of your relationship could seem strange, but I was after all a poet, and she wanted to be my girlfriend. She had told me over and over she wanted to be my girlfriend, and then she said one day, she said, the only reason you don't want to be my girlfriend, my boyfriend, oops, was because you're not confident enough. I mean, this woman had slept with friends of mine. She took absolutely no interest in me whatsoever. She maligned me at every opportunity, said awful things about me to myself and others. And she was psychotic, right? She was a sociopath. She would fuck me, and she didn't seem to have, like, I knew after the first time, like, she had no emotional connection to sex whatsoever. She had no, it's like she'd never really had sex. And I'm pretty sure the first time she ever had sex, somebody in her family probably raped her, because it was like she was used to having nothing there for that experience. You could see that. She was practically raping herself with me. That would probably be more accurate. I know that sounds awful, but she's a very sexually aggressive woman, and but not really sexual at all. Turned out to be a bisexual, and did and said some extraordinarily excruciating things, and trust was broken. But the worst part of it is that she has no morals whatsoever. She was Buddhist, but it doesn't matter. You could say one thing, do something else. There was no fundamental coherence, and again, no emotional connection. She told me she tried to fuck one of the monks at the monastery she used to work at. She told it laughing, like she tried to fuck one of the monks. And it was just like, that's just me having fun. Yeah. And that's how they think. The guy she fucked, of course, but the friend of mine wasn't very much a friend. And he was also a bisexual, and he was also trying to get me to sleep with him. And he was a psychopath, of course. Right? So this is all the people of my life. Meet them. These are all the people of my life. And they're all really interesting. I want to do like a stage production where I get pictures of all these people and put them up and tell stories about them. But it's like the one that got away. These are the true casualties of war. I want to put the pictures of my brothers, my uncles, my mothers, my fathers. I want to say these are the casualties of the true war in this world. And it needs to be understood. And these relationships, though violent and awful, and things I could spend the rest of my life in therapy about, are typical They've become a typical thing for me. And it's been one of the next excruciating part of my life is how typical it all is. From my mother to teachers to this to gurus to you name it. People who wanted to fuck me. It's all typical. It's just different versions of the same thing. I think they're all the same person. I think I've only been meeting my whole life the same person. It's sort of a reverse image of what was I gonna say? That movie where the guy plays someone and his whole life is staged, you know, and the whole world is watching him on TV and his whole life is staged. Um, the Truman Show, right? And what if everyone is the same person? You know, what if you're just meeting the same person? How many people have said, "Oh, I just keep meeting the same guy over and over"? Think about that. What does that mean? I just keep meeting the same guy. Now, we open ourselves up to a certain criticism there. That could mean you or me, or that person and me, that we're just never getting to know any of these people. They're all different, but we never got to know any of them. And then we just assume that the reason we didn't get to know them was because it was their fault. Maybe it was our fault. Maybe I could have done something better. So let's examine it. Right? What if pick anyone in my life and say I could have a better relationship if, and the problem with it right away is the violence. Because once someone can be violent with me, I don't know about you, but that pretty much invalidates any possibility of me having to have a relationship with them. It will never be a bad idea to stay away from a violent person, right? It just, in your life, it was probably never a bad idea to stay away from violent people. So the only recourse you have then, if you were trying to rehabilitate me, was say, we'd have to maybe examine your idea of violence. Maybe it wasn't violent. Maybe you just think it was. Now, of course, most victims of rape would say that's not really fair to me, but I'm willing to concede to a little extra probing. If it would serve science, you would like to know just how violent some of these relationships are. So, let's start with the easy one. Dislocated shoulder. Is that violent enough? Have you ever had one of those? I suggest you go try it and then come back and tell me it's not violent. We can do a little special experiment. Go and ask someone to dislocate your shoulder, maybe 15 to 20 times, and then come back and say, you know what? I've seen worse, you know, and we can have a discussion. You know, you may have something there, right? And we'll hook up biometrics to see, you know, how much endorphins are being produced and how much pain you're really in, right? And then we'll have the doctor say, hey, why don't you wait a couple hours? We've got a few people to see first. Give it a shot. It's lovely. Riding down bumpy roads while your shoulder's dislocated. Oh, yeah, that's awesome. That wasn't violent, Jennifer. That wasn't violent, Ocean. That wasn't violent, Nicole. Oh, Felicity. Oh, Mom. It's an accident. Could have happened to anybody. We could, you know, I could be wrong, you know. And by the way, a lot of these people thought I was. So you would probably share their opinion. You guys should talk. You know, you could get together and talk about how not violent it was when they raped me and dislocated parts of my body. And I think we should put that on PBS. We would call it The New Face of Peace. Violence is not what you thought it was. Delusion, reshaped for the 22nd century. I guess you can take it that I'm a bit bitter about that question. but just a little bit. Well, you know, that's what you have after you've, you know, been violated enough times and routinely. And I'm guessing there are women out there who know what I mean. You know, and I didn't even know it was happening most of the time. I really thought it was an accident myself. You know, after my family dislocated my shoulder a few times, they're all sexual predators. So my brother or sister, they all work in education and counseling and stuff. And the thing is that they don't know what they are. I barely know what they are, and I've been attacked by them. Right? They would just say I'm delusional. That's how they think. That's how they talk. That's how my mom thinks. They're very good. Families like this are very good at hiding things. Right? They manage information, and it's grief. It's really sourced in grief. I'm sure someone could say that it's sourced in lots of other things because it's a big, big subject. But I'm going to say grief. Something lost, something missing, and you lost it too, maybe. But you're supposed to give it to them. And if you don't have the magic key of Zelnar, they have to fuck you. And if you don't have that magic key to the purple-headed dragon, maybe they need to fuck you again. And that welcome to my life. And yes, I could put it into more detail because I've had so many experiences. I can draw upon any of dozens of, a sexual assault, say, from women. It's never just one moment. It could be years in the making because it's programmed into the entire relationship. The person who ends up sexually assaulting or raping you, obviously, the entire relationship becomes suspect, right? It's almost like a package that's being delivered. Someone comes to your door, they make friends with you, and one day the package is delivered. But by the time the package is delivered, and it's like, whoa, there's like been thousands of other messages, little missives, things like that, which you thought you didn't think too much of. You prioritized them differently. You said, okay. You thought that was what being a good friend or a good mother or a good husband or boyfriend or girlfriend was, is to just let that stuff go. And other stuff came up, like how they talk to you to other people, about you to other people. But you just let that stuff go. And next thing you know, you become more under this person's power in a strange sort of way. If they're just a girlfriend, it's very hard to have other women in your life. They show signs of incredible possessiveness. I've had male friends that were jealous of me having other friends because they were homosexual. And this has been happening my whole life, but I didn't fully notice it. That in a sense, everyone I've known is homosexual. In the sense that they're the same person. And I would now consider the sexually violent behavior of everyone I've met in my life to be of a certain type that I would call homosexual. Because it's not about sex. And yet it almost seems entirely about sex. So it tells me, like Nicole that I was telling you about, who always wanted to force herself on me but never seemed to really have any pleasure having sex at all. Right? And it was just very perfunctory, and there's no love about it. There's no anything. It was amazing that there's this woman, this sexual predator around here that used to hug me. And I never really used to hug her back. I would just tap her shoulder or something, as if to say, I'm tapping out. I would just tap out every time. And she never seemed to care. It was amazing. Never offended her, nothing. Always sent her a little subconscious signal. I'm not hugging you. I'm not hugging you. And you would say, well, that's very rude. Right. Again, it's sort of epiphanic. When you know what people are capable of, you learn to be able to de-engineer the relationship quite quickly because they're starting to do things and presenting a psyche that is basically half blind. I mean, they don't really see. They don't know anything about you. They don't want to know anything about you. And eventually, by the way, she did try to sexually assault me, just so you know. So it was just a matter of time. And it just gets more obvious. And you see, like, a lot of people, men and women, have to have a threshold where they just let people be, and even though they're very disingenuous and whatnot, and perhaps there's people in our life that we just, where, you go get a cup of coffee at a gas station. I mean, how friendly, how much do you want to really get to know the guy or the girl back there, And yet they're some of the friendliest people you meet. So, if anything, I think I'm not friendly enough for them. But I never try to make friends. I've never. It's unfortunate, but my species is not terribly friendly to me. I've never seen a person in my life and said, "Oh yeah, I want to be friends with them." Not since I was very young. And the last person I did that when I was young was a native man, and he was a good guy. Yeah. I forget his name now. I think it was Dave. David. Yeah, pseudonym. Serves me right. You know, the red man could say of the white man, your families will be cursed for generations in what we did to the red man. And white people are like, oh, it's not me, I didn't do it. You drink from the well. You pay the price every day, and you don't even know it. I tell myself, I say, these murders on these lands and all over this continent, they were real. If somebody murdered my people, I would never, ever forget. You know? Ever. We took the highest civilization on earth and shocked the fuck out of it with our bloodthirst, our bloodlust, to slaughter, not to go to war, with any honor whatsoever. There was no honor in what we, the white man, did to the red man. None. No honor, no bravery, no pride, no accomplishment, no medal. You didn't prove nothing, you did nothing, you constructed nothing. You destroyed a fully functioning civilization that you could never, ever fucking build as white man in a million fucking years. Not without your heart and your head in the right fucking place. Right? And more white people should do what I'm doing, is get your head and your heart in the right fucking place. No matter what the white world does to you, just take some time to get your head and your heart in the right fucking place. That's not a curse. That's a blessing from the red man to the white man. Just go get your heart and your head in the right fucking place, because most red men, I imagine, do not have a lot of lust for our blood. They don't hate you. They don't hate me. They're the most loving beings on planet Earth. That's what their heritage is. You think the white man has that heritage? You think someone's going to study the white man up into this century? Go, yeah, you're from the pure love of existence? No. Something poisoned our well. White people are not loving. But to be fair, they don't have any experience of love. I've been around them my whole life. White families, they have no idea about love. They have religions of love. I've written hundreds of thousands of poems about love, but I don't know fuck all about love. White people love to talk about love because sometimes it's the only pleasure they get in life. And it's nice if you're happy to think about love. But love with even white women does not work. They're crazy. They're insane. They're insane. They're clinically insane. Like all white women are insane. This insanity comes from the murder that we did. Right? The murder has made us insane because it wasn't war. We didn't go to war with the red man. No, we murdered them. There's a difference. We slaughtered them. We slaughtered them by the millions. We tied children with barbed wire to trees and let them bleed to death and cry for their people and their mother and father. We took a people that treated children to a luxury of existence that the white man knows nothing of in all of his books and movies. We deprived them of the opportunity of seeing a million acts of violence by the time they're 5 years old. The hummingbird just showed up. Thank you. Came closer than ever today. Right? That is powerful medicine, by the way. That's the spirit of the red man just showed up. Is there something worth being angry at, do you think? What do you do when somebody murders your people? And here we are. I get to breathe this air, sit beside this ocean, where the Salish people had fished, an abundance of fish, and taught fucking Cook and his men how to fucking not die. They had such beautiful technology based on the human heart. respect for nature. They were, in a way that white people can only fucking fantasize about, connected to the land. Were and are. You ever wonder the reason for native ceremonies? Lodges, things like that. And I know that a lot of it's a put on because the white man has installed fake red people in a way. But, to tell the mythological white man version of what the red man is, so that we should never look at the murder we committed, even though all of our families are suffering from it. We cursed ourselves. I look at my family and it's cursed. We're cursed. They're stupid. They're hardworking as fuck. The children are all sick. They're sick. They die miserable deaths of cancer. They have no peace in their hearts. Where are their fucking minds? Busy, 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 busy. They're not even alert. Half the time. But you have to teach yourself to see it because it's crazy. You won't believe how unaware white people are on a given day. Especially the ones who think they teach awareness. Those are the really fun ones. I gotta put a jacket on. Put a jacket on. There's like nobody out here. Oh my goodness. I started early today. I guess being attacked by my mother yesterday really piqued my temper a little bit because it threatens the base of my tree. Something touched my house and I'm a little pissed. Something that doesn't want me or my home to be happy. And I'm taking that in. But I also know that I've been doing a lot of curses lately. So I think I've aroused something. I've made something serious. So this is part of curse work for me. I call it curse work. If I had children, I would teach them curse work. If you're going to curse people, do it right. Because, after all, they have to deal with white people. Right? And white people isn't just a color. It's an entire way of life. Right? And I want to teach people about it because I'm an expert. I've been a white person my entire life. If the red man wants to send one of your anthropologists to study the white man, come and talk to me. I will tell you whatever you want to hear. Because you will know, as I know, that the white man is crazy. The white man is out of his fucking mind. He's done too much murder. And he's fucked over by his governments. And he's happy with it because, Machiavelli explained it 500 years ago, right from the beginning. Go read Machiavelli. He explained exactly why the white man is the way he is. He fucking explained it in expert in detail. It was almost poetry, right? If you're writing an epic poem and you want to include the white man, just read Machiavelli. He's like the white man prophet. He predicts everything. He predicts everything, man. He's the Nostradamus of the white world, right? Machiavelli predicted eternity. He predicted everything in history. He predicted everything. Read Machiavelli. Nobody fucking reads it. Oh, he's a bad guy, right? He talked about hurting people and ruling them, and it's he's telling you the truth. Listen to me carefully. Machiavelli is telling you the truth. Okay. Go get it. It's amazing they still publish it, but nobody reads. That's the amazing thing. Everything is explained in there. Everything you need to know, at least to start looking at what the world is. He says in there, there's two kinds of people in the world. People who want to see the world the way it is, and people who don't want to see the world the way it is, right? And what they've done is they've made everyone the kind of person that doesn't want to see the world the way it is. They've turned everyone into that, and that's a homosexual. That's a communist. Right? Well, look at fundamentally, the homosexual, right, can't even admit that homosexuality is a disease, right? It's the solution to a disease, basically, right? Which is a lack of sex. They grew up, and if they're a boy, and they didn't like women's tits. They didn't want to have sex with them. They had a problem. Right? The other boys, because they were healthy, did like women's tits. Doesn't mean they're all that healthy, but healthy enough. Well, not even healthy enough. I mean, it's just the beginning of sex, but the beginning of sex is when we're conceived, right? In people's minds, for hundreds of thousands of years, sex, 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 making babies, right? All of a sudden, it's like, no, that's not normal. That's an anomaly. You should want to stick your ass in the place where the sewage maintenance is done. We've been doing it wrong. And they take the big crane and they move the hard dick and they take it away from the vagina, dun, 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 move it to the asshole of the world, dun, 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 and then they shove it in. And everyone's going, shock, awe, you're homophobic. But it was been inside the vagina for millions of years. No, the world is homosexual. Everything on earth comes from a giant asshole. And the interesting thing is that the ass is actually the sun. The word ass is a pejorative for the sun. Right? Which actually serves as the lead sex energy of the earth. So it's the asshole. Right? So people have learned to be the kind of person, and the homosexual, for instance, does not want to see that for what it is. They don't want to see what they are. Right? People living with the solution to a disease. And it can work. But now they're also, it seems, involuntary members of a club that gets to tell everyone in the world that if you don't think that homosexuality is perfectly normal as the nose on your head, then you're a bad person. Right? You're not a good thinking person. And that is communism. Right? Everybody at some point in their life will probably be a little uncomfortable when they first see homosexuals kissing, because every time I see it, it makes me sick. It just doesn't seem right. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. Why should I have to apologize? You should be apologizing to me, not for kissing, but for forcing me to believe it's normal. I refuse to do so. I'll be the last man on earth that isn't homosexual friendly. And by the way, everyone who's ever raped me was a homosexual. So I have no reason to like you. Right? They're a bunch of rapist pedophiles as far as I'm concerned. And it really angers me. It really angers me. But it's not the fault of homosexuals at all. They're victims in this. They just have a disease, just like psychopaths have a disease. Right? And I said I want to humanize psychopathy, and I think we have. Right? A homosexual is a prototypical psychopath. And it has to be, I guess, normalized into society. For comfort's sake or whatever, but I mean, up into the 1970s and maybe even longer, even into the early 21st century, psychology, which I think is a dubious subject at best, treated homosexuality as a disease. That was the best of the science at the time. Right? And you can talk to, high-ranking members of these establishments in the United States who will tell you that they were forced to change scientific facts about homosexuality, basically. The homosexual world said, here we come, get rid of this disease nonsense. This is normal. Now, if that were true, right, that would be fine. Right? If homosexuality were perfectly normal, if it didn't have to do with any disruptions in the developmental process, we would be great, but it's not. I'm sorry, but every homosexual I've ever known who's come across the threshold of my home has been a very very trying human being to me. Because, and I want to move off the subject of homosexuals because we're just talking about basically anybody I've known. Right? Because homosexuality to me is kind of that thing that everybody is. Which they'll even tell you in Hollywood movies, they'll say everybody's gay. Right? And you say, oh, that was fun, that was cool, and you'll laugh in the movie, but when I say it, you're like, oh, that's menacing and awful. It's like they tell you everyone's a homosexual. Like, okay, everyone's a homosexual. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? And it only vaguely occurred to me that all these people were homosexual. It's not like it was, that they were all bisexual or homosexual. Either way, it's the same thing. Alcoholism and psychosis say there's something to be known about here. I want to make sure you know that. But it's going to be impossible for you or anyone to know what it is. Pain says, here I am, but I don't want you to know anything about it. But I want you to know as much to know as there is about it. A lot of people who are psychotic and violent are very confused about what they're telling people. Whoa. Shit. They're very confused about what they're communicating, what they want to tell people. And I've also noticed that psychotics tell themselves things about me that I don't have to tell them. And they make up their own mind without ever asking me. So like being in this shade right here, they give me a face, they give me a character. It's amazing. It's amazing to think, to get behind the scenes and find out the people I've met, what they think about me. Unfortunately for me, it's never been a secret. And it's not much. Not much. So this phrase, not much, comes a lot with me and homosexuals, because they don't think much about me, the people I meet. Homosexuals. Homosexuals don't think very much about me. They're able to give me a character, right, and not ever think really much about me, but I'm not allowed to have anything but a positive idea about homosexuality, right? They're all psychopaths, but I have to say that homosexualities are great. Homosexuals are great. There's nothing wrong with homosexual, right? Which is just a fancy word for saying someone who doesn't know how to have sex, right? That's all. They just can't have sex. We took people who are impotent, now we've turned them into someone who's like, they're like superheroes, right? Which is not the right prognosis. It's not the right medical course of action. I don't know what the right one would be, but I'm pretty sure that's not it. Okay, so, doctor, I have impotence. That's because you're the most seminal man that ever lived. Let's just get you into the asshole over here. Oh, that's better. There you go. That'll give you. It needs to be a little more violent. There you go. He's not willing. Think about that. He's not even willing. Oh, he's your cousin. There you go. And that's how a man I knew was introduced to homosexuality by a homosexual in his family. Raped him. Right? Because homosexuals put up the higher numbers of actually sexually predatory, sexually violent behavior. Because homosexual self itself is violent. Because it's not sex. It's the relieving attention. And it changes things in the brain that can create euphoria. But it's also addictive. It's like a drug. And the promiscuity of the so-called homosexual world tells us a lot. It's very similar to like a drug world. It's clearly, all of this is a strategy for early event childhood abuse, sexual abuse, which has an enormous amount to tell us, or would have, about what's going on in our society. It's a red alert that these wars and this way of living is more like a curse than about, we're not even rehearsing a peaceful world. We're living in a drug-induced trance most of the time. I get a night and a day that I have to give just to dealing with the violence that came into my house yesterday. And some of that violence is coming from homosexuals. Right? And I'm going to repeat that over and over again. Homosexuals. Homosexual. Okay? What is a homosexual person? They are homo means non-sexual. A homosexual is non-sexual. Okay? That's what it means. So I get attacked by non-sexual people. Sexual people are never violent to me. They don't need to be. Right? And the sexual part of people is never violent to me. The sexual part of people is the equilibrium of morality and peace in the world. Sex is the lodestone of peace on earth. We want healthy sex. We want to be connected to our sex function. Homosexuals who want peace in the world should connect to their sex function, which they still have. Right? Hence the word sex in homosexual. The word sex and the word non-sexual. You can't be fully destroyed. And although homosexuals, you might think in their way of life, are basically destroying, like Christians would say, they're destroying family traditions. That's why homosexuality is outlawed in the Bible. But who cares what the Bible outlaws? The fact is, the Bible is meant for homosexuals. The ultimate Christian is a homosexual. The ultimate human being is a homosexual. So on the one hand, they're the ultimate, right, for what this world wants to produce. It should tell you about the world that all it wants to produce is impotent men and women who think they're all that. Right? I don't know what it's like to not have sex function, but I know what it's like to never have sex, unless somebody's raping me, which is usually a homosexual. So homosexuals, basically, as far as I know and in my experience, tend to rely upon rape as a form of sex. And while I would like to know more, the only thing it seems that homosexuals manage to furnish me is just in the form of violence. I would love to know more about them. I'd love to know more about lesbians, how they became lesbians, if they always felt like lesbians, if they're aware of the statistics of domestic abuse among lesbians, what they think about it. You can even watch lesbianic films. I watched one film, it was a lesbian film once, and you know what it was? The entire film was one bull dyke uttering violent epithets constantly to her lover about things she was going to do to her violently. That's what the entire movie was about. And like, they don't even have to hide it, right? Because everyone just accepts it. Lesbians can do whatever they want. Right? They're like lieutenants in the army of the future. Right? No, I don't want to be around lesbians. They make me uncomfortable. I wouldn't want to be around North Koreans either. And it's like, there are people in this world that I will have nothing to do with for the rest of my life. And what that means is that's kind of a part of all people. So credit to the homosexual world, because again, everyone's homosexual. I don't want anything to do with the homosexual part of anyone. I want to talk to the sexual part of people. The part of us that's capable of peace and morality, and knowing the difference between sex and non-sex, right? Between a vagina and an asshole, right? Those few inches make all the difference. And And I've met like young lesbians in the community, for instance, and they've been lesbianized, and I could tell you the circumstances in which they became lesbians, castrating Catholic mothers, things like that. And they're not women that are very attractive to men. And I see more young women looking like that, unattractive, between the age of 9 and 16, becoming extremely unattractive, physically or mentally, either way. And the same thing with boys. I was with a young boy, I think he was about 9 or 10, and I could just briefly, and his mother is a complete sexually predatory homosexual, and he was just changing, just changing. You could see that change was certainly happening. And what happened, thankfully, is his father got custody of him, and because this woman hates men. I mean, she hates men. She hates. And she loves men who hate women. Right? Frustrated homosexual men. And I got to meet some of them, for instance. And it's just like, you see, a homosexual man of any persuasion, whether he's building a house or whatever, he's frustrated. Right? Even if he has a girlfriend, he's frustrated. He's always angry. Right? There's just always something there, and their occupations, I think a lot of the occupations that demand, a lot of, say, testosterone, a lot of physically demanding occupations are frequently, I think, being filled by homosexual men, because the job becomes not just a job, but it's a solution to a problem, not just poverty, but the frustration that they suffer from. In fact, when they stop working, they'll often, a lot of people in the working class world, and they acknowledge this, the government acknowledges it, when there's a stop work of any kind, homes become more violent, domestic abuse goes up. Why do you think that is? Because the frustration builds up. And just like my homosexual mother, right? They have, this lesbianic woman was explaining to me the power of the different orifices of women, But there's a whole separate orifice that women have. It's called the orifice of violence. And it's a kind of new sexual energy that the lesbian has, that they can actually satisfy and relieve certain tensions of a non-sexual nature through the way they treat men or their children, boy or girl. And they're constantly relieving their tension in this way. And they're so used to doing it that I've seen them, there's a lesbian woman working at a deli nearby, and she takes it out on her customers. And so on and so on. And just like a psychopath, they work in this package, as I said, into all of their relationships. Any vulnerability is free territory for them to claim and make some profit. They'll take any territory. I've had lesbians come into my home, I've invited them to live with me, and they just take all the territory. They claim all the territory. They've taken property of mine. They claim all the territory. They basically piss in every corner of the house. Right? And you see the disease, you see the trauma, you see the need for medical care. And I managed to live with this woman even though she was a very violent woman for just almost a year, 8 months. I don't think a lot of men could have done that. It's not really something I'm proud of. I eventually had to report her to the police, and she left town, left rent unpaid, even though she came from an incredibly rich family, left damage in the house, to the wood floor, hundreds of dollars of damage, and yeah, interesting. Yeah, always lesbians. I've only lived with lesbians. They're the only ones that will let me into their houses. By the way, I interviewed at one house owned by a lesbian, and believe me, you know they're lesbians. Um, and she took an instant dislike to me. Oh yeah, God, and they can't hide it either. Once they dislike you, like a lesbian dislikes you, like they can't fucking conceal it. They can't wait to tell you. It's like, oh, oh, you've touched my gaydar, my hate guard. You've touched my hate guard. Here you go. And it's just like no excuses, nothing, no apologies, no courtesy, nothing. It's just full on hate. I mean, basically flaming. They're flaming. Right? Because, again, not really the sex function, but they're definitely relieving some tension. They're very aroused, but it makes them angry. Right? Their arousal intense. The remaining part of their normal arousal to men is basically just the arousal to cannibalize something about your psychic energy. Based on fear, grief, who knows what. It's like a shadow of something that happened to them when they were young. A lot of them were just pulled around a lot by their fathers, different homes. So you get to know, if I get to know, even through short acquaintance, I can see psychological profiles for people. So this woman, her father had moved them from home to home, build a home, they'd move in, they'd sell it, they'd move somewhere else. So their family was so peripatetic, right? And what did she do? She bought a home, she was renting out a room, she ran a daycare. You meet a lot of violent lesbians running daycares. I got to know a violent lesbian running a daycare nearby. I mean, I could tell you stories about how this woman talked to me. Eventually, physically assaulted me in public. They're just they can't keep their hands off me. And some of them even think they're heterosexual. I think some of them really think that. And it's got to be a very excruciating life not to know if you're the pin or the cushion. I mean, seriously, people make jokes about it, but what an excruciating, you have no idea the agony that no one can even take. There are people out there that have that agony, that have had serious injuries to their sex function, and there's no one for them to talk to. So they just go and they become a different gender. They become Bruce Jenner. And Bruce Jenner is a guy that basically passed through every stage of gender. I think in the year 2015 or so. I think they should have a calendar, the calendar of gender, and it'd be Bruce Jenner in every month. It's like, I'm a boy, I'm a girl, I'm a this. So, in the communist advance, yeah, subjects run underground, and I think the discussion of homosexuality is one of those underground subjects now, and it'll never be discussed openly. Lesbians can do whatever they want. There's a class of illness now, presenting as a woman, all over the world, that is disposed to extraordinary sexual violence to men, young boys, and young girls, and other women, or to collude or to involve other women of some modesty or honesty to collude with them in the abuse of other men and so forth. Women and children. And what kind of system do you think would want that? Right? Does that make sense? That would make sense. You're watching a movie when they were making clones, to rule the Death Star. What are the Empire soldiers? The Empire soldiers are lesbians. No one can keep people under control with a gun like a lesbian. And part of that is because of the nature of women. Because women are essentially, and what is celebrated in a sense in the lesbianic sort of kingdom, is the power of women to do what they want, fuck who they want. Really, lesbians in a sense are super women. Right? They're woman as warrior, woman as everything is my own, from my sex to my gun to whatever the fuck I want to call myself. But yet everything about women in society is actually constantly modeled and fashioned for them. There is no original lesbian. Everything you're seeing is almost a lesbian all the time. Most movies are actually lesbianic. Everything has been lesbianized for a long time. Communism is basically lesbianism. people think of fashion as like something that maybe we're always being told like, oh, women had to try to look more like men, and women had to be male players on the stage. But it's actually everything about fashion in society, and communism is about making men look like women and making everyone look the same. So making women maybe look like men, but making men look more like women, making everyone basically a lesbian. Because a woman lends herself more to a man than a man lends himself to a woman. It's easier for a woman to become a man than it is for a man to become a woman. Not that it doesn't happen, obviously, but so I've studied people like that in their lifetime went from strongly presenting heterosexual. I don't like the term, but people use it, heterosexual. It's not really sexual, but it's heterosexual. Heterosexual itself as a term is still like a degradation of sexual, right? Because it's not sexual, it's heterosexual. Once you modify something, it's less than what it was. And the word hetero itself basically means like it's a destructive word. And so, but let's take their word heterosexual and see them pass through family, wife committing suicide, daughter in drug abuse, becomes a massive drinker, has a few more children, starts a business, smokes a crap ton of weed, drinks a lot more alcohol, feels trapped, becomes impotent, and eventually turns into a woman, starts wearing women's clothing. Right? And taught me a lot about how homosexuals feel about anal sex. Would tell me in excruciating detail how he or she would fuck himself up the ass. And what great pleasure. And they were into health, so they would tell me like what it does to their mind and this, and I could see what it done to them. You know, they were a little bit out of their mind, but they get more confident in a way. It's sort of like cocaine. It can make you feel more confident. I could see how it would be a very powerful drug. If somebody wasn't feeling very confident, and an impotent man, probably his confidence on some levels gone down quite a bit, then you all of a sudden discover the powers of fucking yourself up the ass, and you can do that by yourself with a dildo. And the way the sparkle he would get in his eye when he would show me his dildo, and he'd show me the porn that he watches, it was just like that was it for him. Like he was over the moon. All he wanted to do was that he was trolling for young women. He was in his 70s, trolling for women in their 20s to strap one on and fuck them up the ass, or let them do the same thing to them. Yeah. So can you imagine, as I described that, the frustration if you have sex function, right? And then imagine the kind of woman that would want to do that with him, which would be like a lesbian. That's it. Imagine the frustration of those people if you have sex, like if you were reduced to that. But at the same time, you might be happy to hear that it makes them feel really good, which is great, right? Makes the brain feel good, activates certain centers in the brain, kind of makes you a better soldier in a way. It is, I think, almost like a trick or a secret that nature has given to people when they're really down. Fuck yourself up the ass. You know, I think a lot of soldiers and stuff, they get lonely, they get down, they discover getting fucked up the ass or sucking a little cock just perks them up. You know, and I think that's something that is just a very unexplored area of the history of human beings. And I would say non-sexuality. So where human beings basically can't be sexual, and what they do basically that can easily be considered sexual provides for release and even many other benefits, because now it has to serve almost like a more medicinal value. It's not really necessarily about bringing people together, it's just about coping, getting through, and in some sense turning you into a kind of superhuman being. The Nietzschean Superman, the Ubermensch, is essentially a homosexual or a transgender. Strange thought. All things that never would have occurred to me 10 years ago. But then, if things never happened to me, and if I didn't think that my peace was somehow connected to people, and if I had a very poor experience of people, any of whom I'm sure could be quite relied upon to just say, I'm just a poor person, or I'm just crazy. So you find yourself almost slotting yourself into that category because you know the kinds of people you're around. The fact that I've written any number of books or anything like that, it doesn't matter to any of them. And I try not to take it personally. In fact, it's kind of a perk, because, people like that, you rather rely upon not having to talk to them. Your relationships with them are basically based on what you can get away with not telling them. And I'll tell you why, my agenda is that I try to pattern any acquaintance so that I have to tell people as little as possible, because I can't stand that feeling in the pit of my stomach and in the sadness at the bottom of my heart when I tell people things about myself and they obviously don't care or don't understand what I'm saying. And they go into an anxiety response or they go into an aggression response. And it's like they're so caught off by what I'm saying that it's like I'm choking them or drowning them. When I used to start talking more the way that I'd be comfortable talking to a companion, my dad would tell me that he felt like he was drowning. He felt like he was drowning. And I'm like, okay. I got the feeling, I got the message, like there was danger. So I was just like, okay, and I learned that my dad was dangerous. I could just be talking about a subject enthusiastically, wondering about human behavior or something, and just be like, not that my dad isn't psychologically quite savvy. He's a psychopath, which in a sense, like for humanity, that means that in terms of like the reverse image of what I'm saying, everyone's actually putting up good numbers in surviving in civilization. And in a lot of respects, that means that probably at least participating in something psychopathic. A scary thought, I know, but like there's a lady out here, the way she walks tells me that she's stupid, but she's not dangerous. But she is coming this way, so I'm going to be careful, because all humans are dangerous. All humans are dangerous. The day is warming up. That's my introduction for the day. It feels unwieldy. I feel like a bad person. I feel like I've soiled myself. I shouldn't have said all those things. I have to get it out of my system, and then I'm just gonna keep studying as long as I have a chance. And who knows? I mean, like I said, I dealt with a lot of evil yesterday. So I keep my house pretty clean energetically. I left my mom at a good place today, so if I come home today, and again I have to take days, like I go into a protocol, taking days and even weeks to just kind of crank my mother down, because she is a psychopath. She's a lesbian, and she gets cranked up. Like, lesbians have the highest rate of domestic abuse in the world, and it's like I watch my mom I don't know what to say. Like, there's just something, the way her brain is wired. She gets to a point where she seems to need to physically assault, usually men, but it could be my sister, or it could be me. And I've seen my mom, like, when she wants to slice, she'll slice, and there's no sorry, there's no nothing. That's just what she does. And it's like, to watch your own mother behave that way And slowly I've seen her sliding into it, just things that come out of her mouth. And the way she talks, it's like a slightly different personality. It's like, ooh, that's bad mommy. Right? Bad mommy. And that's like someone like, it's never just getting angry, it's like murderous rage. It's never just you left the toilet seat up. It's this is time to think about shaving a little bit more off your testicles. It's everything is just now at a different level. You're not a roommate, you're prey. You're not a man, you're a menace. And it's just it's terrifying to be around. Most people probably wouldn't be able to live around it, but I do, because I love my mom, and I know she wasn't born a lesbian, but I think she pretty much was, very early on in life. I just don't think she's ever really admitted it. And it's interesting to me, like my mom's friends, my aunts and stuff, they're pretty much all lesbians, like Christian lesbians. Because what they're really hiding from you is that there are different ways of life that inhibit the development of the sex function. A. B. The effect of that is homosexuality. Right? Now, if you want to be a homosexual of a different provenance, that's fine with me. But that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the homosexuality that comes from, say, a Christianized, but any kind of harming to the sex function early in life. So you get girls who are tomboys and things like that. And the whole tomboy thing for girls is basically homosexuality. They're not behaving like girls, and it's fine for a woman. I've seen like children, young girls who like being out in nature, but they're different. They're girls, and what's different about them is, it's not all the typical things you would think. It's different about them. There's a certain poise, a certain elegance, a certain refinement in their mind. I've seen them. I don't know what the color of it is, but there's a certain celestial refinement in the mind of young girls. Boys, you're great too, but you got your own thing going on. Boys are great. They're lovely. They're loving. They're very careful around creatures and girls. They listen well, but they have a voice of their own. But it exists in relationship to her voice. And that's a really important thing for girls and boys to understand. That girls have a natural, powerful voice in the world. I'm not into them having to be lesbians. You start them off with the respect for that celestial elegance that a girl, and she's not to be deprived of any physical activity that she wants to engage in, but within reason. But it's not that a girl that wants to climb trees and be physical is a lesbian. But there's something else that they will tell you. The tomboy will tell you, I'm a tomboy. It's different. It's not just physical. It's a manner of dress. It's a solution to a problem. And most girls who are tomboys, they don't mind being tomboys per se. They know they're a bit different. And it's fine. It kind of fits into society. Girls being tomboys is not a bad thing. But it, clinically speaking, it does show there's been a change in the sex function. Right? I think something's been tarnished, essentially. That not the person themselves or the spirit themselves, but the femininity they're capable of exuding. When my mom goes psychotic, this is not a feminine being anymore. And so a lot of the sort of threshold personality really can't be as feminine. It's got a hole in it, and that hole, that dislocation, causes the person to slip into almost an altered personality. And this slippage, this ability for the mind to dislocate, is what fundamentally allows people to go to work and to learn to socialize. So people presenting as lesbianic are just one aspect of how the human body is responding. It's learning to dislocate itself. When I interact with people who are violent or clearly don't have any ethics, you basically just give up very quickly, and the idea that you're talking to a reasonable person, and when you do meet, like, it's so easy to talk to a human being is so easy to interact. Humans are meant to be easy to interact with. Like, so that if two human beings met on the earth anywhere, you would just have whatever each of you would call a very easy interaction. No problem. All is well. Reasonable, kind, generous. There would be no quarrel if there was some reason to conspire in the interest of each of your survival. That decision would be reached with some considerable patience where it was needed and haste where it was needed, and all would be well. Like, humans are really very smart. Children are very smart, and yet you look how smart children are. If you're not a moron, you see how smart your children are, and you wonder how people in the world talk about the origins of human beings, and they talk about all the wars and things like that. Human beings actually are so good at getting along, but you never get to see that. And little girls, without a doubt, have a very peculiar, meaning exceptional, celestial energy. And women are supposed to have that as well, just that women lose it as they get older. They lose that femininity. That's why femininity is associated with the celestial, right? In history, in astrology, in all kinds of literature, in all kinds of science, essentially. Like, the quintessence is considered a feminine being, a kind of mother, a mother ocean. Now, as long as you're absorbed and you respect yourself and it feels right to you and you respect the subject, you can explore that sexually anywhere you like. And if you can find some place from where I'm talking to being a homosexual and all is well, I'm okay with that. But I don't see it. That's all. I just don't see it. I don't see everything, but I don't see it. Right now, my imperatives in my life basically have to do with tracing the origins of violence. So my perspective is biased in that particular case. So I think that's a kind of a complete talk. I can't talk about everything in every direction. You know what I mean? And that's the thing about political correctness. Like, if you want to talk about homosexuality, you really want to talk about it. You know, in fairness to a homosexual, you should talk about all of it. You know, and I should have to be an all-knowing homosexual in myself. Be like, I am Dexon, the ultimate homosexual. Let me tell you the story of homosexuals. You see that homosexual there? He was born a homosexual. He liked other boys right away, but he was really waited long and hard until he got so long and so. Anyway, I don't know that. I don't know anybody's story. So that is a poverty to me, that I do not know your story, Mr. or Mrs. Homosexual. That is all my poverty, not yours. You may sue me for that poverty. But I have no particular interest in scarring the spirit of other beings. Whatever your sex is, I mean, I'm sure you're doing what you need to do, and if you're, you know, hopefully you fare well and have the allies that you need. I'm doing the same thing. I don't claim to my sex to be perfectly healthy. I don't always have the time to mention that, but, you know, I mean, I come from a homosexual family. I come from a psychopathic family. I live in a psychopathic world. I mean, think about it. I mean, am I just the luckiest fuck in the world and it never touched or stained my blood? It's just, I suppose you could convict me of talking about it all the time. It effectively makes me one of them. You know, I talk about homosexuality more than homosexuals do. You know, it's like, what does that tell you? You know, but I'll try to be as honest as I can. I've never had homosexual sex, except that the women who have sex with me, I'm pretty sure, are homosexuals. And you know, I've been around homosexual men who sometimes have tried to have sex with me. And what else? I mean, I miss the words. It's just like I could tell you stories about homosexual friends of mine. I grew up with them. It's just like, it's its own kind of thing. I mean, they're very different, but they're also very similar to, you know, psychopaths. They're complete psychopaths, but I mean, they're human psychopaths. They're natural psychopaths as much as they're naturally homosexual. I mean, the disruption in the sex function, clearly it was an integral, absolutely sacred, you might say, primative dislocation in their mental and emotional development. Just, it literally fucking had to happen. And how can you criticize someone for something that If it happens, it fucking has to happen. It'd be like if I dislocated my shoulder and you said like, that's wrong, that's bad, you know. You just have a dislocated shoulder because of blah blah blah. And it's like I have a dislocated shoulder, dude. It didn't happen by accident. I didn't walk around going, gee, I'd like to dislocate my shoulder, right? So a homosexual is not like, hey, I wanted to be a homosexual. You know, that's like the ultimate thing for me to be. Maybe they do. I don't think it is. But there's nothing they can do about it, right? Any more than there's anything I can do about my life, essentially, sexually, right? And that I've never had sex. I've never had a girlfriend. I've never been kissed. I've never kissed anyone. I've never held hands, except one, again, lesbianic predator who forced me to hold hands with her for a few minutes. A strange woman who just walked up to me, right, and started stalking me. But a lesbian, fully lesbian. Okay? I mean, she was really enjoying herself. She had a sugar daddy. Okay? Many lesbian friends, one of whom actually married a male friend of mine and gave him a heart attack within a month. While other lesbians that she knew were telling him how to eat and drink, changing his diet, showing him how to be healthy, and he died. And these lesbians were at his wake and were actually like making huge amounts of noise and spreading tons of violence while everyone was trying to grieve. And it was like, huh, interesting. And it's like, I lived in it. I've lived with lesbians. I've lived around them. And it's a lot of noise. It's a lot of radiation. It's like they're nuclear. It's like when you're away from it at all, you're just like, whoa. Like my mom the last 24 hours, it's like she's been flaming. You know, I should have called Rosie O'Donnell to come by and lick her pussy or something. I'm nice to my mom, you know? I don't see the lesbianic part of her as like who my mom really is, but as she grew into her lesbianism as a child, she changed her name. Her sister was killed by her dad, my grandfather, and grandmother, essentially. I mean, I don't think you really ever recover from that. And, you know, you grow up, and as I started saying earlier, my mom, I thought like there was 4 children. So if you look at the first 10 years of all 4 children, that's 40 years that my mom had to get to know a child on this earth from her own womb. And she never took 1 minute to do so. Literally never sat with any of us, never talked to any of us, never got to know any of us. Like, to be around my mom was like being at the most wonderful bar in the world where you have your own barmaid and she's all yours and you can just like have her there, but she just smiles and does her thing. And you feel pretty safe, but over time you tend to doubt that it were anything other than the fact that you were as safe as you imagined yourself to be, which was really convenient for her since you didn't make any terrible noise about basically having no contact with your mother even when she was around. So, you know, it's a pretty good deal for everybody. So my siblings, as they got older, they quickly, I think, figured things out. It's not really fair to say that figuring out process basically is torture. And I guess they're still trying to figure it out. And they went on with their lives, careers. I don't speak with them. They're violent homosexuals. They don't. I see it in my mom. Like last night, they don't think properly. They're the kind of people who think, one and all, there's doctors. My brother's a doctor and stuff like this. It's just they think that all the shoulder dislocations I had from domestic abuse were for the following reasons: my relationship status, being possessed by the devil, not being heard enough as a child, being schizophrenic, Asperger's, depressed, lifestyle. I think I got all of them. There's been at least a dozen over the years. I wrote most of them down in one of my books. I was just like, while my mom was actually sending me to hospital, actually almost bi-weekly, or bi-monthly, I should say, I wrote a book about it. And the types of things she was saying to me about, I was actually suffering from crippling physical problems from her violence toward me, and constantly for 4 months, near death. And eventually she let up, and not only was she energetically raping me, but a friend of hers, an elderly woman, was helping her in the way that only lesbians can. Trust me. And it's just like they got up so much hatred for me. And I tell you, I don't want to make lesbians angry. Trust me. I don't want to make you angry. I know you could fucking kill me if you just looked at me. I don't doubt your power as women or as beings. Like, you're a lesbian because your power has been challenged. And you basically had to take up the gauntlet. I get it. Every lesbian has picked up a fucking Excalibur along the way. And there's that part to it. And in the psychopath, the gleaming sword of righteousness, with which they propel themselves through the world, which does, in a sense, modify the amount of the violence they're capable of, and tends to see them picking certain people over others to treat to the more excruciating capacities which they have fashioned for themselves over the years, to make sure that they maintain their space, and what they possess, and what is theirs. And so that you know where you stand, and everyone knows where they stand. And it's really important to psychopaths. That's because they're basically trained by a system that's made to train soldiers into the army. Everything in the world is about making sure everybody knows their place, and you know who you are, you know your role, if you don't work and you don't do this, then you should think of yourself this way. And if you don't go to war, you should be ashamed of yourself. And, this is what the war is, and this is what the war isn't. These are the effects of war, which are none, and these are things which are not the effects of war, but of this, that, or the other, and they are numerous. It's unfortunate, like, what people have to tell themselves all of their lives. And then not having a standard as a child in terms of mental, emotional, or physical coherence in any of the adults around me. But many of whom, if not most of whom, were distinguishing themselves in terms of most of the parameters of the communist middle class of Canada in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and so on. Because Canada is a communist country, make no mistake. That's what the records will show 1,000 years from now. This is all communist. The entire world is communist. And part of communism in the world today, which is defining itself in a million different ways, like a spreading illness, is that you have these different systems that people think, these different political systems, but they're all the same. And it's an incredible kind of control of people's minds. It's militaristic. They never even grasp upon the concepts, especially large order concepts about their mind and how it measures up against other people's minds, and what's happening to our minds, and what our minds are capable of when they're not learning how to fire a gun, or see who can run the 500-meter dash the fastest, and putting all of your life into making that profit margin. The only thing I put all of my energy into is taking a shit. The rest I kind of spread around like fertilizer. So I hope, if I've done my job right, that when I go home today, my mom will be in a good mood. We'll have a nice That's what I want. That's what I have in my heart. That's what's going to happen. She managed to divide some of my energy yesterday. I had some bad information she gave me. She really does know how to divide things up. Look around you. How many people around you, or is there anyone around you, who serves to divide you from other people in your life? Is that a good thing? Have you learned to tell yourself it's a good thing? And even though if it is a good thing, is it still a good thing? Whenever I have lesbians in my life, including my mom, they always do something for me. Before I knew they were all lesbians, they always did the same thing. You know what they do? They keep all kinds of people away from me. And part of that is also because they actually psychically rape me. So they're constantly living off my physical energy as a man. So I couldn't even form a relationship with someone when I'm living around them, which I always am. I've never lived anywhere there wasn't a lesbian around. I was living in this one place, renting this house to myself on the beach, and next door was 2 generations of lesbians living in the same house. I mean, it was just like, they literally would stare at me when I would go sunbathing or anything I would do. They would basically monitor me like I was constantly an invader in the environment, even when I was on my own property. And they made no attempt to hide this fact, by the way, which is why I know. When I'd be at their house, they would show me and regale me with how they monitor me when I'm outside my home. 2 generations of them would tell me, sometimes with mock scorn, how I should live, what I should do, and all this kinds of stuff. I mean, it comes easy to them. It's what, I hate to say it's what we've turned women into by sucking that wonderful feminine energy out of them. I saw it happen to my sister. You know, she became a dyke between the age of 9 and 13. No doubt about it. You know, she's with a guy, but he's homosexual. You know, they don't, from what I can tell, they don't have much of a sex life, and neither of them really require that. A lot of these very tightly wound, high maintenance, upper middle class, like, trust me, my sister, she doesn't like sex. Right? So there's a lot of homosexuals spread out through seemingly heterosexual relationships. I keep seeing a spirit over here. I'm sorry. So a lot of sex dysfunction. I have certain sex dysfunction in my life. I've never had a girlfriend, so some people think I am homosexual. Some indiscreet lesbians usually they're like, "Oh, are you homosexual?" Like there's something wrong with that, even though they're a lesbian. It's just like, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, it's just, the irony just goes on for eternity. I think when we all get together and finally see what's going on in this world, we are going to laugh our asses off. And then that will make us laugh because we'll know what that means. Anyway, our asses, you know. I'm sitting on my assets right now. You know, maybe we should laugh our assets back on. You know what I'm saying? Let's turn on the lightning, people. This is Odin speaking. Turn on the lightning. Turn on the lightning. I'd make a cartoon for HBO, and lesbians would like write in like, "I don't like this." It's like Odin's like going. Odin and Othila are like, "Turn on the lightning. Turn on the lightning," and it, like all of a sudden everyone becomes sexual again. It's like the lesbians are going, "No, no!" It's like an evil spirit of homosexuality fades away, which is just the spirit of anger. You know, it's the same thing that prevents me from having sex with women. It's the spirit of anger. And this is, again, in fairness to homosexuals, because I want to step away as much. Like, if we do this right, it shouldn't really be about you being a homosexual. It shouldn't be about that at all, if I'm right. And what this is all about, in interference to you and me and everyone else, I think it's the spirit of anger. Take away that, you could stay a homosexual and it wouldn't even matter. But the origins, as far as I can tell, of homosexuality are the origins of everything in all of our lives that is too angry. It's like too angry. I think people believe even more easily than that the earth wants to kill them. Mother Earth is trying to get rid of them because, like, it's God that's angry with you, then the earth is angry. It seems like something out there always has to be angry at us. But I think fundamentally we're angry at each other and we're angry at ourselves. And everybody's angry. Like, literally everybody. And we should all take a moment to think about that. That's a profound thing. That we share that with the human race. Everybody's angry. Like I said, human beings, if they really come back together, they'll come back together in grief. This is where we come back together. Grief, the anger we share. We don't want to get together. I don't want to know you. You don't want to know me. But maybe we share an anger, baby. So I was thinking of a rock song. It's like, let's share my anger with you, baby. But yeah, maybe I don't like the idea any more than you do that I share anything with these mongrels. doesn't enthuse me. I mean, I met them. I've met all of them. I've met all of you. I've met all of you. I've met all of you. I have. I've met the whole human race. I've met all of you. There's nothing too original about any of you, let me tell you. And maybe I'm the same. I just like, what the fuck happened to us? It's like we're all the fucking same. We all have the same problems, and we do. We all have the same fucking problems, and that's a problem. Especially if you think you have a different problem than I do. This problem of living, right? Which I haven't solved. I think I want to be one of the first people on earth that say, hey, isn't it great how little money I have? Isn't that cool? Isn't that like kind of interesting about me? Anyone else with me on that one? Hey, I don't have any money, and it's cool. Look, when I go out tonight and I meet a woman, I don't have to worry about romancing her because I can't afford to buy her dinner. I just go home and masturbate. I just know that's the moment somebody comes up and says, excuse me, sir. That is only one dimension of my life, one small facet. It doesn't describe the entire man. But no, I mean, if you want to talk about my sexuality, if you want to know what I was born as, someone covering his testicles daily. That's what I was born as. And so I never got an interest in working and getting to fuck a woman. Never even came close to docking in my mind. The male part and the female part just never got together at a celestial, laborious level. I was not going to labor for her labor. You know what I'm saying? I'm not labying for your labia. And I came in the 2020s, I guess they would call it MGTOW. And men who go their own way. People like the idea that, everything about having to have sex with a woman has essentially been tainted in a way that detracts from wanting to have sex with women. And I'm sure other MGTOWs wouldn't put it that way, but let's go with that. I'm stoned and you're horny. No, I'm just kidding. Please, forget I said that. Jesus. The last time a girl watching my videos was horny, I think that was one of the worst decisions I ever made. It's letting her stay on my channel. Which is that's the worst decision I ever made. It's just from now on, my motto is, if you're horny, keep it, that's your worry. If you're horny, that's your worry. I'll let you worry about that. I don't want to worry about that. It's not my problem to solve. God, I just feel like a bad person. I'm so bad at being a person. And then here I am talking like I'm trying to be so good at being a person. It's just, even I can't handle the paradoxes. The temporal paradoxes in Back to the Future alone are nothing compared to this. And there's no Michael J. Fox to lift your spirit. Hey, Doc, why are you sticking your dick in the back of that DeLorean? Well, I went to the future. What's his name? Mike. And I found out something new about what can help you travel through time. Doc, you're just fucking a DeLorean. It's like, well, we've made 10 Back to the Futures now, and it's 2120, and times have changed. Now we fuck our cars. Our cars fuck us. It kind of been there all along, but no one wanted to admit it. So, we're considered quite frigid, actually, in these days. In the future, they're like, we all came out of the closet and declared utter devotion to our cars in every way. I know it's not fair to car owners. There's a very deep bond between man and his car. It's like man and his horse. You can't disrespect that. It's the code. A woman and her horse, well, that's a little more disreputable. Women and horses, they don't mix. Once you start seeing them moving up and down in the saddle, this is, there's nothing else you're going to get done that day. You're just like, don't do 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 do. And it's just nothing so beautiful as watching a woman's hips rise and fall on the saddle of a horse. And it's just, it really is a beautiful thing. And in so many wonderful ways. Because we can just relate to the beauty of locomotion. Like the idea of being moved. Like for me, my risk, my gamble today is that I can sit here all day and I'll be moved. The horse is kind of like manaz in the runes, which means momentum, but also beauty in motion. So I'm hoping to have some beauty in motion, and then someone can ride me like a horse. No, I didn't say that. Delete. I probably don't have an appropriate way of talking about sex. A little bit. I will say that, if you'll forgive me, because I've never had it except through violence to me. But I don't think any of them could rightly claim the opposite. One did at one point. This woman raped me a couple times, and then when I wouldn't have sex with her anymore, which I think I was very good about because I didn't get mad at her. I just, she basically clearly wanted to get pregnant by me. This is something that she had already done, and continued to do several times after I left her. So I've confirmed that. So, and the first one she raped, actually, I believe was underage. So, yeah, it's really something. And she's a nice lady. And she just had a way of talking, I guess, that she just sort of made it seem like it wasn't a big deal. It was all about her child and the spirit of her child coming into the world, and she'd made a kind of art out of it, really. And I'd like to believe, maybe because it makes me feel better, that she cared about her child. But all my other reason tells me that. Well, you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say I think it's not all that. I didn't finish saying what I was saying. She eventually accused me of raping her baby, which she later retracted as utter nonsense, but that she was just angry for some reason because she had been raped when she was a child. Now, I don't doubt this is true, but I do think that there is something malicious to be construed in the convenient nature of this excuse, if I may say this. And this is a woman that I like. It's just like over time I noticed like I had certain obligations. I had to, we all have something to do in this world, so I took it as like I have something to learn. You human race has something to learn. People should know about this. People should know about, the roommate that I had that actually had been a friend of hers, and then how that woman treated me. This is a lesbian that I live with, and how this just kept going on from house to house, from woman to woman. Every time, stupidly, I thought that I could trust this person. And so much as I trusted, I really trusted that they had basic morals. They had a head on their shoulders, and when I said no about something, it was no, especially to do with sex. But it never, ever mattered. They didn't know any no when it came to men. There was no no. Man was yes. Man was yes to them. I was yes to whatever they wanted to think, whatever they wanted to say to me, about me. Yes, 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 yes. Never a no should be heard. Never a boundary should be felt. Never stirred, not so much as an inch in my mind, as to ever really getting to know me. And granted, it can take time to get to know someone. I think it takes time. It's not like linear. It's not like I've spent 5 days with you, I know you this much. But if you're truly getting to know a human being, and I'd like to do them the generosity of saying this, it takes time. And sometimes the mission is aborted. And then what happens, it's not linear. You basically feel like you never really knew that person at all. Especially when what breaks you apart is violence. And so it takes, I can take any woman I knew in my life, and basically it's like I never knew her. It's just like a shadow in my mind, because there's nothing you can trust about this person, and you almost feel like you should never trust anything about this person, because you have to learn not to trust anything about these kinds of people. Like, you just can't trust them. I could not trust them. And I didn't give them all my trust. I gave them a little bit here and there, and they could not be trusted with it, ever. And I came to serious harm over and over again. So I know what it's like to live around lesbians. I know what it's like to live around people who are humans and are great in probably so many ways, but it's like I never got to know them. I wanted to. I wouldn't have been around them if I didn't see or feel something great about their spirit, but it's like all they wanted to do was play psychological games all of their life. And in all seriousness, it's almost like artifacts of their training, how they were trained to think, how they're trained to cope, and how they train themselves to cope as a child. Because that's a lot of what happens is in this world, is we have to train ourselves to cope with things. And as you might expect, children aren't always the best at training themselves. We take for granted, I myself, like, oh, we're this powerful and children are so pure and we make it through. But the fact is, children are often crushed by the responsibility to cope when they should never. A wonderful Jewish man I used to know. He wasn't like Jewish, but he was just like a nice man. I'd rather not, I wish I didn't even say he was Jewish. He could have been anything and it would have been great. I'm sure he makes Judaism look wonderful, but I'm not a big fan of it, but I was a big fan of his. And he just said something one day that struck me. He was kind of a remarkably eloquent man, and he said, someone was talking in the background. He ran a chocolate shop about children and about children under stress, and he said, you have to understand their children. You have to understand their children. And I love the way he said it. Really had an ear for things like that. It's like anytime someone speaks about children around me, I just go full antenna, everything up, because I'm always looking for information about children. I know that sounds creepy, but anything about child trauma, anything about like what can be said to protect children, because I knew from my own experience in life that everything about protecting children could be very nebulous, very plastic. It could serve everyone's interest but that of a child, right? And a lot of us learn that in the world. So I wanted to see not just the words, children are important. I liked hearing someone who put something behind that. So you have to honor the fact that they're children. I love that. And in that moment, he spoke so well of his religion, whatever it would have been, his gender, everything. And the place that he'd set up, the place where I'd come and had a cup of tea and chocolate. They were the nice Jewish couple that got to be a part of my life. It's probably one of the only positive stories I have. I later learned over time, I think in some sense the mother, who was very maternal, quietly and discreetly adopted me in a certain sense, you know. She would always do a little extra, you know, and she had a nice smile. She was a genuine human being. I speak in the past tense because they moved and lost touch, and I'm glad we did because I don't think, you know, they would want to get to know me too much, but in my life. It saddens me to think that. I was also a very quiet person. I'm not inclined to make a lot of chit chat with people, but I'm happy to share the smile of the day at any time. You know, and the day was always smiling in their chocolate shop. You know, whatever day I was having, and I really relied on that. Living and healing on Salt Spring Island, I would, for years, felt like forever in a way. Almost every day I would go down in the morning and have a cup of mint tea and buy like a 50-cent piece of chocolate, dark Calibo, and I'd sit there and write poetry, look out the window, and they let me do that, and it didn't disturb me. There's probably never any place in the world I ever felt that. I felt that safe, really, in a long time. And so I learned the rhythm, you know, to get into that rhythm. Just nice people. I didn't want much from human beings. I liked that they were nice. Because not a lot of people are, unfortunately. And all the people I knew on that island, and they must have seen me talk to a few. They'd come and sit with me when I was drinking tea. It was kind of like half my office, and a theater of the damned. And people would come, whether they called themselves my friends. The conversations I had sitting at that table, and the things people said to me, you could make an entire movie based on it, and call it, you know, 1,100 cups of tea. It was, you'd be fucking, your ears would be bleeding. You'd be calling your mom and thinking about suicide by the end of it. It's just, is this the human race? You know, seen through my mind, you know, and it's just a lot of people in pain. And of course, me as well. I mean, I'm sure that family saw me and knew that there'd been some pain in my life. You know, in a discreet sense, they wouldn't have made too much, but they wouldn't have made too little. And I'm sure it figured into their sense of me as a person. And then I just find, I hope people will just let me show them who I am over time, because I'm a person like any animal, like any true animal. Like, I have to take time to get to know someone, you know, and so if I do interact with people, I like it to be, you know, from time to time. And that's the best way to get to know people sometimes, actually. You know, and in that way, there was a dyke in the deli over there, and you know, she's a really prickly human being and very difficult. I mean, I talked to customers who, and I myself had gone through a process of, like, should I stop going here? It's just the way she is, right? And you know, you know, she's just been doing that her whole life. You can see that, and I just decided to put up with it. You know, now and then we had a couple nice, okay talks, but she had no real soft way with people. You know, maybe the person next to her, maybe, but she had a really fierce side to her, fiercely. And I've been around dykes like this, like, for years at a time. I really do kind of know them well, but not the way that you know, unfortunately, the worst side of human beings, because they think it's their best side. So, you know, it's like, imagine if the facade of your house, you think it's like a total mansion, and when I drive by, it looks like a crack den. You know, it's, you know, what people are putting out there doesn't always feel the way you think it should. And I learned that growing up around psychopaths. And a lot of people within families, within groups, and outside groups, and so forth, learn to put up with a lot, to the point that you don't even notice it anymore. as for like a dyke like this, as long as you honor her boundaries, like a certain, take a little abuse, but honor her boundaries, she's good. It's, and learning to kind of honor that actually was a pleasant part of my life. And over the last couple of years that I'd gone there, just always kept it civil. But I mean, she would say inappropriate things to me, but it was just a cup of coffee. And I always repeated, I would just stand there quietly and say, take your time and never a rush. There's times she asked me to stop coming there in her not so polite ways. And I just kept returning. It's like, take your time, take your time, take your time. No rush. I could wait here for half an hour. I just like being here. Thank you very much. Thank you for showing up, And kept doing it, kept doing it. Didn't earn much credibility with her because they're merciless, but you're never a person to them. In a way, a lesbian gets to be what women would say about men. If a man was the way a lesbian is, you'd call him a misogynist. Basically, they love them, they hate them, they could leave them. I mean, and if I look at the women in my life, it's like, was there love? Did they hate me? Were they ambivalent? Is it really just their own healing path? And they haven't got to the point where they see other people yet. It's like, I see dead people. It's like, have you ever gotten to the point where you actually start to see people? At the point in your life, the point in your healing journey, where you start to see people? Because I meet people all the time who haven't even started to see people yet. And I wonder, I don't wish anyone any ill. I wonder, like, if human beings are going to learn to see each other again. It'd be great. It'd be great to really see each other again. I mean, did we know there's a way that culture and government can influence how we see each other? So, if we actually see each other, we might say, everything would be fine. Just think about that while I take a piss. If we actually saw each other, everything would be fine. There's a guy over here. I'm going to sit on these rocks for a second and piss myself. Fuck, it's cold. Oh, it's okay, I can handle it. Man, they're doing one of those chemtrail extravaganzas. It's a chemtrail extravaganza. I'll show you. Chemtrail extravaganza. Wow. Yeah. Wow, it's incredible. It's funny, like, if I may be permitted to say something even stranger than all the shit that I've already said, but, there's taking pictures. Yeah, I'm glad I came out here. Is that I haven't seen them this in force, and it is a time of year where you can get a little prickly about chemtrails because here in Canada it's cold a lot, and we're by the ocean, so you like every drop of golden heat that you could possibly get, and the chemtrails tend to cut down on the full force of it. So like I can stand here in the sun and it's actually gleaming and glaring, actually kind of super hot in a way. And I'll do some sun gazing while I'm out here. At the same time, the ambient temperature in the earth is not going to be heating as much as they would because you're not getting the infrared coming in as much, and you're not getting, it acts as a lens. So you're not getting the longer wavelengths, and there's the heat, or the shorter wavelengths, I don't know, one of the two. It's not heating up the earth as much. And that's what you depend on in Canada. You want the ground to heat up as well, so that when you get to August, everything gets superheated. But even before then, like you get a nice steady increase in temperature, getting into the 20s in June, July, but we haven't seen 20 yet. And we'll see what happens. Beautiful rocks, boulders. So I don't know. Anyway, but I kind of get over it too. And I thought it's kind of pretty. I know I hate to say that, but it's like they're doing what they need to do, I guess. I don't know, whatever it is. I try not to get too. Doing what they need to do. I'm just sort of walking around too, because there's people around and we'd like to take a piss, but I also wanted to kind of do some looking around. Man, it was scary. It was scary in my house last night. Yeah, it's like I said, it's going to be better today. It's going to be better. Yeah. Actually, the spellcraft, the satanic spellcraft I did yesterday, and I'm drawing from those pentagrams right now, just to, like, something was coming. I knew it. And I was just like, fuck, there's evil. And there are people who wish me ill, women, lesbians, and unfortunately, predators. You cross their path and you prevent them from doing things that they like to do. They get pretty fucking angry. And they get away with a lot, right? They get away with an awful lot. And things spill out, and they spill into my world. Well, I'm going to have to clean up some of the spillage. I might need to draw a line here and there. And usually it does them a favor, but it really does, but they're not the kind of people to appreciate the favor that they've been done. Like now they can, maybe they're forced to maybe deal with things a little more. I've had a little savage wake-up call of sorts, because, they certainly do the same thing for me. You do. It's a lot of destructive energy, right? So I saw there was energy, and what I noticed, I've had a lot of practice of this, is that the tendency when I'm being attacked on any level is that it gets into my house, and the person I'm living with, my mom, lovely as she is, she's very easy to influence with anger. That's something I've been very slow in learning over the years, is that there are certain people my mom can talk to on the phone, and she'll become more aggressive with me, and just because she's talked to that person on the phone, just changing her mind state changes. It's like, I don't know what it is. Sometimes, like, it's one of the reasons I don't think that well of my relatives anymore, because I never get a positive feeling from my mother after she talks to them. And it's like there's something in these people where war has been done to them, and it's kind of a war of attrition, because they don't seem to get through to me. They had access to me as a child, and a lot doesn't get through to you. It took me a long time to get to know my mother, because, again, she had these 4 children and didn't really spend any time with them. And, you grow up and it's like you don't even have a mother, and nobody tells you, and she has no responsibilities to you whatsoever, and nobody tells you, and you're just kind of like, you want something, and you're scared, and you're hurt, and there she is, maybe having a glass of wine and reading Sidney Sheldon, and she helps you out in some ways, gives you a little respite here and there maybe, but at the same time, she's integral to the entire problem. And this is not an environment for children of any kind. Like, it's just, it comes back to, like, you're a child, right? And my siblings had been coping with this, obviously, for a long time. So by the time you get to 9 to 13 years old, everyone is changing quite a lot, because each of them is secretly living in a very hostile environment, right? So that's how I would explain my lack of relationship with my family. And then
I find when I spend time out in nature, sometimes I can kind of connect to something good about family. Something that's still inside of them. Something that I'm sure they would like to get across, but they just don't know how to change the conditions that have made violence between us almost impossible to avoid, unless we avoid being around each other. And I've acknowledged that, but I don't think they have. Um, I understand that psychopaths and stuff, they have very particular needs in relationships with other human beings, as you all may imagine. My siblings are psychopaths, and I studied them. It took a lot of time to learn what they were telling me, and I wrote books about it. And what I finally learned, because they're never explicitly clear until you ask them specifically, and once you find the right question, they give you the right answer. So once I had the question, I had the answer, which was, what are you saying? And I listened and listened and listened, and eventually figured out what it was. And I asked each of them, I said, is this what you're saying? And they said, yes. And what it was, we need we need to be able to do violence to you, and we need you to behave as though the violence has never happened. And if you don't, we take that as provocation, basically, to sever any but the most prejudiced relationship with you, or obligations in any way whatsoever. In other words, we get to hurt you, and you don't get to talk about it. And if you don't like it, it's too bad. And when your entire family says that's what they've been telling you, and it gets a little more detailed than that. That's your walking orders. Right? I found out something about them, something they really didn't even think to tell me, but was adamantly true. And put into their own words, they would say, "Oh, it's completely normal." Why wouldn't they want that from me? Because anything that I have to say about abuse is obviously wrong and inappropriate. Right? And that's what happens in families with abuse. Right? You can't talk about it, obviously. Right? It's like can't talk about Fight Club, which is a strange kind of movie in a way, because for most children of abuse, the thing you really usually can't talk about is not Fight Club, it's abuse. There's all kinds of things that people just don't talk about. And I feel it in people all the time, like the stuff they've learned not to talk about. And I've seen how difficult the road it is for me. Like I started off reading science fiction books or Carlos Castaneda, and today I'm just reading my life, anthropologically. And it's interesting to look at your life as what could you talk about and what couldn't you talk about, and what happened when you tried talking about stuff that meant something to you. Did people accuse you of having a disease? Right? What happens when psychopaths and alcoholics and volatile people or homosexuals in your family start getting more and more aggressive, and you say stop, and they get more and more aggressive, and you don't know what to do? And maybe you lay down a few lines here and there. But when you're dealing with these kinds of homosexual people, like my family are homosexuals and lesbians, like at that point, they'll just go whole hog. They'll rip you to pieces. It's like giving a pit bull red meat, laying down a line for it. Because that state of mind, right, taken up over days and years, and then reaching like the liftoff of a rocket, hours and minutes, into the moment my shoulder was first ripped from my body, right? And this was deemed acceptable and necessary because whatever it is I'd asked them non-violently and politely to do. Like stay out of my home, for instance. Right? Because I noticed whenever my dad was around, violence would start to happen. Right? And his mother, my grandmother, was a lesbian. Right? He learned this from her. Right? And you draw a line with my dad, it's over. Right? That was it. They don't even know what they're doing. You can't tell someone to stop doing something they don't even know they're doing. I notice with psychopaths, they don't give accurate readouts as to their expression of rage and its effects on the environment. So you may think in your mind that you know how angry you are, right? But people like my mom, they fly off into a rage, and you use the word rage, and they're like, "What are you talking about? Shut up." You know, let's change the subject. They can just fly into a rage and then change the subject. Right? Even to the point where it starts kissing and sizzling your skin, and shaking your heart, taking the wind out of you at the end of your day, and then change the subject. Right? Oh, sure, they have something to get off their chest. And it never seems to be finished until it takes something away from your peace of mind. And then they're done. And then you can see patterns, and they can start to escalate. Right? When you see a behavior, I mean, anyone can be cruel, I guess, from time to time. You see this escalate over almost like a cycle. Right? Sometimes you think you understand the circumstances that provoke it. Sometimes it seems like it could be almost anything. I noticed that when my mom starts to get more violent, she's communicating more vehemently on her phone, and then quite often it's with my sister or somebody that provokes her in her life or provokes her in some way. And lately I've caught her on her phone and said, like, "Oh, who are you texting?" And she just says, "Oh, this person or this person." And and she just starts to get secretive like that. Right, and normally, like, I might say, "Oh, it's just nothing," and think it'll start to get better now. But over the last day or two, she just was. I could see it was like, there's something going on, and she just doesn't tell you. I think it was between the landlord and her, actually, and then I don't know what was going on there. Yeah, so she got secretive, and then she got violent. So in this case, the landlord, in a sense, provoked her. She's decided to go to war with the landlord, as a lot of these psychos do, and it's like they just don't know when to leave well enough alone. I try to explain things to my mom, and they get angry about things. You never get angry about stuff, but like on some level, like maybe you just shouldn't be angry. There is a less than a red zone explanation of what happened. So my mom went ahead and got some work done in the bathroom, and paid for it, and then expected the landlord to pay for it. And I know that 9 out of 10 of you are nice, good-hearted people, and you're probably thinking, yeah, of course, why wouldn't the landlord pay for it? Which is what the plumber told her too. He said, yeah, of course you should pay for it. But these men are morons. You shouldn't tell my mom what you should. Oh, look, there's a black chemtrail. I haven't seen one of those for a while. They lay down like almost a different color. So they're really turning it on today. Put it on the show. They shouldn't be telling you that. The fact of the matter is, you always have to get the landlord's permission before you spend their money. It's a courtesy, if nothing else. And when you don't extend that courtesy, don't expect them to be all that courteous to you, And that's what happens. I think it starts to the beginning of a lot of wars between tenants and landlords. Like, I've seen it in other people's houses. Like, you just make bad assumptions about your landlords. Like, I'm sure a lot of them are slumlords, but if you just extend to them a certain amount of reason, you can make your life an easier place. Like, they're going to cost you money. That's right. Because people do. They're human. They're white. They're landlords. They're going to cost you money. But try to think about, like, building that cost, right? The army has to build in the cost of human life. Like, oh, we're going to kill people now and then. It's built right into the cost. And so with most companies, but the cost of doing business with a lot of people is you're going to lose some money. But better to lose a little money, right? It's almost like a racket. Like, I just think, whether it's a conspiracy or not, it's like I tend to lose things from lots of different kinds of people. Like, you always lose something with them. So, like, females, like, I'm always going to lose. So there's a person out there taking pictures for so long. There's no way I could take a piss out there. So I can't believe how fucking obsessed they get with taking pictures of eagles. It's out of this world. I wonder also if my mom's anger last night is related to the chemtrails. That's another level. Ooh, I know someone who would say, absolutely. I guess the good thing is is it's on the upswing. So and I said to my mom, I said, if you ever get bored, I'm never too busy. I want to do something. So we had a civil discussion because I said the other day, like, she's not working as much, so. Weird, as a child, it seems like so long ago. It's not really long ago, it's like another dimension. I had no idea that people and homosexuality would have such a violent influence over our time. And how nobody would know how to talk about it. All the violence, in all fairness to homosexuals, cover your ears, but all the violence that's really being done to man today is homosexual in nature. That's why it turns people into homosexuals, right? It's the effect from the cause. It's an impression of what's happened to the mind, right? How are we going to solve it, right? Not with a legal system, not with an ethnic cleansing, right? Obviously, because these are our brothers and sisters after all. Oh, it's nice. Sun's coming through. Oh. Ugh. No. My mom is basically my only friend in the area. I don't have any friends. The sun is my friend. Birds are my friend. My hairy palms are my friend. Imagine if the way girls dressed in porn was the only place you ever saw girls dressed that way. Wouldn't that make porn so much better? Little irony there. Last time I was here, I had a strange interaction. Oh yeah, I'll probably see an effect in my bowel movements. But I guess my home was kind of under attack last night. But I seem to have anticipated it. I didn't know it would take that form, but I remember my mom is vulnerable. If I learned that lesson, I should keep peace in my home. My mom is very vulnerable to picking up rage in the environment. There are
couple child abusers in my building. I've gotten to know from experience certain types of women. How they behave, how they talk, what they talk about, what they tell you, what they don't. Who manage to severely injure their children. And it's weird because, it's the people themselves make it easier for you to live with it. You look at them and you're like, you kind of feel sorry for them on the one hand. I think because my mom is so violent, I feel a kind of sympathy with them because I know that life is tough for them quite often as well. I give everyone the compassion that the world is such an amazingly difficult place to live in. It is so violent, so what can you do? What should you expect from yourself? And then she does something, or one woman or another will just do something that just tops the scales. And you're like, oh, letting these people go, or at least accepting too much of how these people behave in as generous a way as possible is actually bad for us. If you look at every violent person as a victim, you have to accept them as a victim, right? But at the same time, there are victims who not only are not asking for help, they'd rather you stay out of their way so they can victimize other people, right? And there are also some people who are also looking at for help, but not for victimizing other people. In fact, they have kind of like a 50-50 mind. They don't, like my mother, they don't see what they do to other people, right? And I'll keep it on my mother just to make sure that I'm not offending people, but it's the way my own mother is. Like, she just doesn't see what she's doing. There's a part of her mind that can't see what they're doing. They can tell all the right kinds of stories about it if they need to, but they can't really see what they're doing. It's the most incredible thing. Like, there are people walking around from us, they're not blind, they're one-eyed. Human beings kind of don't see 50%. They're not colorblind, they're morally blind. They're not seeing the lines between things. You see what I'm saying? The human race, people, psychopaths, homosexuals, they don't see the lines between things. That's why they're homosexual. That's why they're communists. They just don't see, like some people don't see red from blue. Like they're morally blind. Right? Human beings have become, they're trained and educated to be morally blind. And in this case, we're also talking about like what people are doing to other people that they don't see, what mothers are doing to their children that they don't see, and their children don't want to see. Nobody else wants to see. And what the most abuse that I've ever seen of children has always been connected to women my entire life. And yet, when you live in the world, the stereoscopic culture of mass society, you get completely the opposite idea. It's like we're trained not to see it. That women are doing most of the sexually assaulting of human beings. And those women are lesbians. They're acting homosexually. And that homosexuals in general are doing most of the domestically predatory behavior. It's the same thing. To be disposed towards that behavior and to not be able to see it is to be like a one-eyed person. Someone who's lost sex function, who's lost moral distinctions about certain lines between things. Just like the line between fucking an ass and fucking a vagina has just been erased. It's been changed around. Instead of the line preventing the cock from going from vagina to anus, it's now preventing the cock from going from anus to vagina. It's complete. It's the body has had to trick itself into thinking a man's asshole is as pleasurable as a woman's vagina. if not more. It's an incredible change. And it doesn't come about by accident. One of the ways, of course, is if you're raped. Especially if you take any pleasure in it. Right? Think about that. Not pleasant, is it? It's not pleasant, the thought of someone being raped and being forced to take any pleasure in it. I've had it happen. It's not a nice feeling. It's disgusting. Right? Like Felicity Kelly works for Jingwei Qigong in the United States, runs her own Chinese health outfit of some kind. And she raped me. You know? It's something that women like her can do. It's what they tend to do. It's where things tend to take them. It takes them to that place. Or one day they can just walk into your room, suck your cock. And you may have suspected, you may have asked some tentative questions and asked her about, her intentions towards me physically and all kinds of stuff. Everything's above board, but then it isn't, and it never was. And they can't help it. So you'd say, well, what's the point of saying her name? Well, it's just right. She works in an industry where she comes into close contact, say even with children, right? There is no boundaries around her coming into close contact with people. I was in my 30s when she raped me, and she was in her 50s, right? When she was 20 years old, I wasn't even born yet. Think about the difference. This is not a woman who draws all the right lines between things, but moonlights as a representative or a channel of the energy of the most divine love in existence. A friend of the vast and wonders of the Hindu deities of planet Earth. And Dr. Dong Zhong of Jingwei Qigong, right? Has a penis so small, it's turned into his third eye. And that's kind of how psychopaths like Dr. Zhong operate. They're very skilled, very talented psychopaths, very skilled. And they have all the same reasons to be a psychopath as anyone does. And essentially, they're helping psychopaths. They have, I think, a genuine interest in helping with the psychopathy of the world. But at the same time, they are inescapably psychopathic. They make a profit. They make use of these psychopaths. They give them something to do. Meanwhile, like his students rape other students. And he has all kinds of interesting prescriptions for them sexually, whilst telling them that he knows more about sex than almost anyone in the world, and how modest he is. But he teleports. He goes off into other dimensions, goes to sacred Grecian-like temples and fights the diva, which usually sounded like a feminine energy. Risking his own physical life, comes back with knowledge so they know how to blow ping pong balls around the floor and become better, more integrated people in their cellular complex. I mean, he's really got it all going on. And he's out and out clairvoyant for sure, and has some strong empathetic tendencies towards the human race, but he also, at the same time, knows what's good for him. Right? In other words, he's smart. Very smart man. One thing you would not say about Dr. Zhong is that he's stupid. He's not a stupid man. He's a complete flaming psychopath, but he's not a stupid man. Right? He's exposed Felicity to near death while you're not allowed to have anger in the school. His first number one student was an out-and-out flaming psychopath. I tried to kill Felicity Kelly at one point, and then Dr. Zhong convinced her, by her own admission, that it was all her fault, but that he had protected her like a father. And so in this way he groomed the next generation of psychopaths. And this is just a fucking qigong school, for Christ's sake. I mean, what does this guy fucking do for fun? You know, what does he do to let off a little steam? Use chopsticks to, you know, get imaginary mosquito-like clitorises out of the sky. So it's, you know, you have to kind of laugh a little bit. On the one hand, like, pretty creepy shit. And, pretty creepy shit. And, you know, he claims he knows more about sex than anyone in the world. And he knows everything about chi. He's the highest and the best. You should get his fucking Ming Ling Wu, and it'll make your ding ding do. You know, it's all the best. It's all the best. All the best. He's sort of like he sort of touts himself like sort of you know, the incarnation of testosterone, basically, Dr. Testosterone. He knows the secret of the sex energy. Yeah. He's got those secrets going on. And these fucking psychopaths, they even recognize each other. They could pick each other out of a crop, you know? They could pick each other out of a crop. So Felicity Kelly worships about 3 of them at any given time. You know, and this is what she's been marrying.